What's happening, guys? We are back with another edition of the Zero Hour. As promised, we've got Cody Saftic joining me today. I'm excited, as always, to break down the betting portion of our big Aries Amped card going down this Saturday night. And it's going to be live from the Fairgrounds Nashville Arena in beautiful Nash Vegas, Tennessee. You can catch it live on spectationsports.com. Cody's going to be in the house calling the action with Dustin Ortiz and Alexis Davis. It's going to be a great time. Cody, thanks for joining us here, man. Excited to have you down south here in just a couple days.
Yeah, I'm absolutely by always. I mean, we've done a lot of great previews for a lot of great shows, but you can tell that this one's got that special feeling in the atmosphere. You're at a bigger venue, right in the heart of downtown Nashville, and just an excellent card top to bottom, full with future prospects of the sport, guys that you could see on the Contender Series of the UFC very near future, and of course, guys that are just coming off of the UFC. So, excellent job as always, Tim.
Appreciate that for sure. Of course, there are some tickets still available in the general admission sections that you can get those at fightertix.com. Do us a favor, like the show, subscribe so you get notified when we post more content. We'll have the weigh-in streaming live here Friday as well. So make sure you subscribe. You'll get notified when we do all that good stuff. Of course, the odds will be found at Action 247 if you live here in Tennessee. But if you're in other states, the Arizona, Colorado area, I believe Bally's has the odds there. So we'll jump into it. Our good friend Clint actually made the lines, which is kind of cool. And it hasn't posted yet, but Cody and Clint have an episode going up where it's kind of cool. I don't think there's anybody else doing this where, Cody can kind of pick apart the lines and get an explanation from the guy that made the lines, which is something a little bit different. I think that's something I'm excited to check out. Let's jump into it, Cody. First bout of 6 professional bouts. We got 10 total fights on the card, 6 pros. We start off with a catch weight at 175 pounds. It's Crazy Kyle Lee taking on Rumble Savage, Antoine Curtis. It's they've made this one a pick'em, -110 on either side. Kyle Lee 0-1 in his young professional career. Antoine Curtis making his professional debut. They've got the total set at 1.5 of the over +115, the under -140. Cody, what you got on this one? And this is two guys with not a whole lot of material out there, to be able to get a look at. So one of these where you're flying a little bit in the blind, but you have a feel for what these guys like to do anyway.
Yeah, and I think Clint, this one -10 each side, it's a pick exactly. When you look at Kyle Lee, he was 5-0 as an amateur. When you look at Antoine Curtis, only 4-0 as an amateur. Unfortunately, when you do your research, it's like, yeah, no, this thing's a pick'em. In Lee's case, 5-0, of course, but he's been competing at a very lower level on Jonathan Ivy's promotion down south. And even though he's picked up a couple notable victories over guys that were 5-0, that 6-2 range, none of them ever fought again. I mean, they're all guys that literally lost for the very first time to Kyle Lee and then never competed again. Lee also, he's now 35 years old. He's had some work done to his neck. I believe he had his C6 and C7 vertebrae repaired. I'm sure he's in shape. I'm sure he's geared up, ready to go. And it's just a lot of question marks as to what kind of physical shape he's going to be in, where his skill set's at. It looks like he's BJJ purple belt. He would probably be best suited to get this fight to the ground. Of course, in his pro debut, you saw him just sit down in the middle of the cage and throw down with a heavy-handed opponent. So this one screams that over 1.5 at -140. Of course, you've seen Lee as an amateur. He can finish. As a pro, a little bit older, you got to think this thing is not going to go the over 1.5. The flip side of that, Antoine Curtis, the majority of his amateur fights as well, all inside the distance. And of course, the biggest change here for them is that they've mostly fought as amateurs that are 3-3-minute rounds. Now in the pro ranks, the 5-minute rounds is going to make a big, big difference. So I got to think at -140, the best way to attack it is that under 1.5. Who act? Great question. Again, Lee seems to have an edge on the ground to hit the fight ground. I would think he'd have the slight advantage. But with Antoine Curtis, he shows a lot of amateur kickboxing experience as well. He seems to be athletic, explosive. Fight standing, I would think, have the advantage. If Lee can get to the ground, he would have the advantage. But in either case, that under 1.5 at -140 would be the best betting avenue. So gun to my head, got to make a pick. I think I would lean towards Antoine Curtis, but again, from a gambling standpoint, the under 1.5.
All right, I like it. Should be a good way to kick off the pro card. Probably going to get a finish either way you look at it. Moving on to the next bout, that finish may be a little bit more in question. We've got a featherweight bout And this one is going to be between the Kurdish King, Ava Mai. He's minus 185, comes in at 1-0 in his young pro career, taking on Damien Gaskin, who is back at plus 150, and he's making his professional debut after quite a bit of time on the shelf. The total on this one set at 2.5, and the over is juiced a lot, minus 300. I believe maybe the biggest line on the entire card, minus 300. The under 2.5 plus 250. This is one where I think if you look at it on paper, it certainly looks like there's a ton of value on Ava Mai. Just looking at the numbers. What's your take on this one? Is Gaskin a live dog?
I said the same thing to Clint. I said this is the kind of opener at 185, but who's a talented grappler, 24 years old, talks a great game and can back it up. He had a 7-1 amateur career, turns professional. And then again, that's where you see the difference between 3-minute rounds and 5-minute rounds. He kind of did struggle in his pro debut. It was a different pace. He need to dig deep. And what did he do? He dug deep. He showed that he was a fighter. He got the split decision. I agreed with the decision. He moves forward. Now I would think he's taking on slightly of a lesser opponent than his professional. He's a little more seasoned. He has that cage time, and he should just be good to keep on riding in it. Of course, his brother's also on the card. He's in a grappling match. And I think that he's going to have that local Tennessee support. I mean, he's the hometown guy. The kid's good looking. He's excellent on the microphone. And he's starting to really get a lot of that local support. So I think he is going to be in good hands. Flip side to that on Damien Gaskin, in 6 amateur losses, because he's 2-6 as an amateur, he's finished. And see, that's why this is good matchmaking. People would say, oh, wow, one guy's undefeated and is a prospect, and the other guy's 2-6. It's like, well, that's what you need when you're 1-0. You need someone that's going to go and give you rounds, test you, allow you to develop, allow you to make mistakes and maybe overcome from them. Durable, but I'm not seeing a whole lot outside of that. The last time he had his hand raised in victory was when he defeated a 3-7 opponent. So this is in the sport is to come in, test these young procs, use your martial arts to defend yourself. Don't get knocked out. Don't get choked out, which he never has. But at the same time, he's generally not getting the victory. So I would say Mai's just a little too strong for him. He's going to be able to bully him up against the cage, take him down when need be, and then from there, put an old-fashioned grind on him. At minus 300 for that over, definitely juiced. But is it not a little too much juiced? Because with Mai, of course, he has a lot of amateur fights by decision. His pro debut was a decision. For a young prospect that wants to start getting eyes on him, of course, you want to add to that highlight reel. And I see him going out there and just really gunning for that, actually getting it. So I have no interest in betting that over 2.5 because it's just too juiced. And I could see a world where Mai finishes this thing at minus 185, minus 25 for his pro debut, and he squeaked out his decision. Yeah. This minus 185 looks better to me.
All right, moving on. We've got a lightweight bout. It's going to be Logan, the real deal, Neal, at minus 150, taking on Diedrich Sanders, plus 125. The total set at 2.5, and it's even both ways. They're over 2.5, minus 110, under 2.5, minus 110. Logan Neal comes in at 3-4 with the inverse record for Diedrich Sanders, 4-3. Are you surprised, Cody, that the guy with the lesser record is favored here? We've got a little bit of a gym rivalry here between Agogi Combatives and Nashville MMA. This being the third guy from Nashville MMA that Logan Neal will try to topple. What's your take? I'm excited to hear this one.
Yeah, so this one's interesting because, of course, with Logan Neal, he's taking on these guys from Nashville MMA, and first of all, they give him Charlie Alexander. Well, good luck, man. Charlie Alexander is a little powerhouse wrestler, very physically strong, tenacious, sticks on you, excellent grappling, and of course he just grounds Logan Neal for the first 2 rounds. Neal did an excellent job of rallying in the third. Of course, he's losing the fight at this point, so it's a moot point, and he drops a decision. The next guy from Nashville MMA he gets is Pat Crumpton. Well, Pat Crumpton is a hard-nosed, blue-collar grinder. I mean, he's a guy with good wrestling, he's got good cage control, and of course, excellent cardio, comes in good shape, and Crumpton does the exact same things to him. So if you're Derek Sanders coming out of Nashville MMA, 100% Charlie Alexander and Pat Crumpton would be telling you the blueprint is right here. Back this guy up against the cage, double leg off the cage, take him down in the open space and control him. However, it's a lot easier said than done. Charlie Alexander is a stud. Pat Crumpton, he's the champ. He's a negative about Derek Sanders, but certainly on paper and from what we've seen, he ain't no Charlie Alexander or Pat Crumpton, let's be real. So he's a guy that also has a professional career outside of fighting. It seems like maybe his head is sometimes in other places. And for that reason, I mean, if you're not going to come in here with the ability to neutralize Logan Neal for a full 15 minutes, you could be in trouble, because the reason why the guy with the losing record is still favored is it could very easily be a winning record if not for some better management. It's that look at almost all of his losses, there's a valid excuse. The fight with Aviv Ghazali in Bellator, BJJ black belt out of Israel, you're a massive underdog, you're not to win. And what does he do? He stuffs the first 2 or 3 submission attempts. Didn't look bad in the early going, gets caught. I'm giving him a pass there. It's a Bellator fight. BJJ black belt, high stage. That fight with Charlie Alexander, we just talked about it. Guy's a wrestling stud, grounded him. The fight with Dimitri Miller, it looks bad on paper, 14-second knockout loss. It's the first time in his career he made 145. He had a bad weight cut. He got clipped early, and that caused him to realize, you know what, you can't be cutting that much weight. Go back to 55. And what does he get? He gets Pat Crumpton. So, of course, they're losses, right? They're going to stain your record, but they're credible losses against good guys or in a bad situation where he tried to cut down to 145. And I can't hold any of that against Logan Neal. The guy's striking is good. He shows up in excellent shape. He's a guy that lives in the gym, puts in the time, puts in the effort. And I think he's motivated. 3-4 record, sure, but you go out there and you get this win. You get yourself back to 500, 4-4. Aries has been, giving him a home to compete. He's got a good scene here. He's starting to get some support. And of course, he's only a few wins away from getting back to one of these big show call-ups. So I think he's motivated to get back to that stage. And I think he'll be able to go there and, for the most what Derek Sanders is bringing at him. Sanders, meanwhile, the guy's got some excellent, cojones of his own. All of his losses are studs. Zack is a Contender Series veteran, Eagle FC veteran, a Bellator veteran, Jonathan Pierce, UFC veteran, and a very good one. Terrence McKinney, UFC veteran, and a very good one. He's willing to step up to the bit. But coming from the Alaska FC regional scene prior to that, where he got his first 3 wins, it's going to be considered fairly low level. How does that transition to the Tennessee regional scene? Probably not overly great. And then his last fight against B2 fight series against Travis Hill, I thought he looked better. But again, I just don't know that his wrestling and his grappling is good enough to neutralize Neal for a prolonged period of time. So therefore, Neal, scrambles, sprawls and brawls, uses his superior striking, gets the job done. And at minus 150, not a terrible price tag as well. Kind of lean towards the over. I could see these guys fighting it out towards a decision, certainly getting into that later stage of the third round. But I think the safest play would just be that straight up Neal money line.
Good shit, my man. Good shit. Moving on to the feature bout of the evening. This one is also at featherweight, so we got a lot of featherweight action here. It's going to be Charleston Pugh, minus 125, taking on Zack Hicks, plus 100. The total, once again, set at 2.5. The over is minus 145. The under, plus 120. We talked about Zack Hicks' last fight before Corey Delaney. Went out there, looked really good, and is looking for the quick turnaround after a couple years off. First time that we've had Charleston Pugh in our cage, so I'm excited to see what he brings to the table and excited to get your take on this one.
Yeah, this one I think is a classic striker versus grappler, striker versus wrestler, maybe more specifically. Both guys are BJJ purple belt, so maybe the grappling will neutralize itself, but it's all about who's going to end up on top. And Charleston Pugh has also been spending a lot of his time as a professional boxer. I'm going to say against Hicks, who's a little more stiff and rigid standing, Powell's going to have that striking advantage. However, he's got that wrestling. He's got the grind. I believe high school wrestling, someone that lives the lifestyle. And coming off of, I think he got some work done to his knee, right, prior to the Corey Delaney fight. Yeah, so now it's all about, can I test the knee? How good am I feeling? Am I still able to train at an elite level? Because Hicks trains with some of the best guys in the state. So, does it feel good in camp? Yes, it does. How does it feel good in the cage? Against Delaney, which I wouldn't call it a layup opponent because Delaney is dangerous, but he went out there and he made it look like a layup opponent. He got the job done. His wrestling looked very good. Against Powell, he's going to have to put it right back to good use. He's going to have to get a hold of him, grind him up against the cage, try to neutralize that in-between space, and then hopefully have the cardio to grind him down. Hicks, prior to the knee, kind of seemed like he did tire out the later fights go. His loss to Latroc Colic, where he went to South Carolina to fight the local South Carolinian, he gassed out and he got finished in the third. Against Guy Curry, where he went to Georgia in prospect, he got TK'd in the third. And then against Reginald Adams, again, maybe he slows down a little bit as time. Now with time on the sideline, got his knee repaired, quick finish over Corey Delaney in the first round. If this thing gets extended into the second and third round, I could not confidently say that Hicks's cardio has improved that much. And he's going to need it because a grind strategy is going to require full 15-minute effort. I'm just leaning towards at home in Nashville with his own crowd, his own support, his own teammates. I think that they're going to cheer him on to just complete it, fight through, do what you have to do. You might have some of your students in the crowd. Who knows? The main thing is I think that extra little bit of a drill will kick in for him and allow him to takedowns and just continuously grind him for the better part of 2 of the 3 rounds and then hopefully get the decision. So I can see this one. Again, it's minus 130 versus plus 100. It is a tightly matched fight. I think Clinton was pretty accurate about that. I would just lean towards that slight dog money for Zack Hicks because, of course, in a wrestler versus, kickbox, 90% of fights hit the ground wrestler. We need this fight down with our guy in top position, and then we should be fine. So sign me up for Hicks plus 100.
Co-main event. Getting into the nitty gritty now, another featherweight bout. It's Jacob the Killer Kilburn, minus 190, taking on Razor Robbie Ring, plus 155. Total set at 2.5. Once again, the over is plus 125, the under minus 140. Excited to get your take on this one, Cody. We've got 2 guys in very different stages of their career. We've got interviews with both guys on the channel, both worth a listen to get some insight into this. I thought the Jacob Kilburn interview was one of the more insightful ones we've ever done because he really got into, what it's like getting cut from the UFC and some of the struggles mentally and financially and things like that a fighter would go through. You don't often times hear from guys after they've been cut and get kind of that side of things. Robbie Ring, very confident. Obviously, strength of schedule is a big disparity here. So I'm excited to get your take. Do you like the line on this thing? Do you think it's too short? What's your take?
Yeah, well, I was interested when the line first came out because, of course, I think the world of Robbie Ring, I think he's a legitimate prospect. Sky's the limit for him and someone that you'll be seeing on Dana White's Contender Series in the very near future. On the other hand, has he bit off a little more than he could chew? Because according to his record, he's not seen anything remotely close to this. As an amateur, yeah, he fought on the local Virginia regional scene and fought guys for the most part who would be considered per level. And then as far as his pro career goes, 0-3 William Wilson, Drew Henry, who was 0-0 at the time, but we all know about Drew Henry, Matthew McKinney, 0-2, Dusty Little, 1-0. It's very difficult to jump from guys that have a pro fight, maybe have like a modicum of some type of pro experience, to a guy in Jacob Kilburn that has 14 pro fights, that fought in the UFC, that he has some wins over some decent guys in the regional scene. So, experience is just a vast majority. Like, you'd see these guys that fight 0-0 guys and 0-2 guys, then fight a guy that's 2, maybe even 10, but at least has 50 fights and slowly develop out. But they're jumping right on. For a lot of people, I would say probably not the greatest idea. For Robbie Ring, I'm completely behind him. Why? Because his parents are his backers. His parents are the ones that have had him in martial arts training since the time he's 2 years old. I mean, the kid's got a lot of experience. You're just not seeing it on paper. I mean, he's the pride of Virginia. He's not just a young prospect out of there. He's like a golden boy, and I do think his his career is headed in the right direction. For a kid like this, that's young, good-looking, and sky's the limit, you can sign with any number of agencies, and they could feed you all types of can opponents. But it's his own family. It's his own team that's saying for Kilburn, but his career is starting to fall into that domain. There was a time where he was a decent enough prospect. He shows decent wins over Edward Massey, couple back-to-back wins over Elvin Brito's, got a good little bare-knuckle boxing career going for himself. He wasn't bad. He made it to the Contender Series. He made it to the UFC. He went out there and he did financially, like you're saying, it's very, very difficult for a fighter to go from. Imagine you fight for the UFC. So Jacob Kilburn moves to Florida because he's got a UFC opportunity. Now the UFC pays $12,000 to show up and $12,000 to win, which would be at best $24,000. Now Venom's going to kick you an extra $4,000 for wearing the Venom package, and so at best you're looking at maybe $28,000. Now there is, because we're thinking about at best here, there is a chance that maybe you get some type of performance bonus, and maybe you could get $70,000 or $50,000, and then that would give you a grand total of $78,000. Plus, maybe getting some sponsorships would be a little bit easier because I'm fighting on national television for the UFC. So that's being optimistic. And of course, if you want to be a fighter, you have to be optimistic. Because if you're a pessimistic person, you're not fighting. And if you're a realistic person, you're not fighting. You have to be thinking it's best case scenario every single time, right? So you're willing to move to Florida because best case scenario, I get paid $78,000. This move was worth it. I get an apartment. I pay coaches. I pay some training partners. My dietitian, strength and conditioning coach, and life goes on. When you lose all that and you go back to the regional scene, you may be fighting for $3,000 or $4,000, right? Still living in Florida, you still have rent due, you still have groceries, you still have to make pro practice, but now you job. Now your forearm snapped in your last fight. Now you get your arm. It's 6 months off, corrected. You don't have health care. You don't have full-time employment. Pay out of pocket. Whereas Robbie Ring, everything's set up for him, man. He's a prodigy. You know what I mean? Like, he's not worried about what he's going to eat for lunch. Like, it's a completely different thing. So Kilburn comes in like a hungry junkyard dog that's willing to throw down. Like he's going to give Ring all types of troubles. But the line's set, like, go out there and walk right through Ring. And I think he's in for a fight. So this plus Robbie Ring just looks too good for me to pass up. I have to take that.
And what do you think about the total? Do you think we get a finish here, or think we go all 3 rounds?
Yeah, this is another one that's interesting. I would think we're getting that over 2.5, just because, again, this is a big jump up in competition. Jacob Kilburn's fought in some decent guys, though he has been finished level of competition, at least on paper. Robbie Ring, everything he fights is under 30 seconds. 30 seconds, like 18 seconds, absolutely dusts people. But they're 0-1 guys, they're 1-0 guys, they're 0-0 fighters. Kilburn's going to be able to take a few shots. Also, if Kilburn's a desperate man, and according to the interviews that we've heard, he's kind of like he might be a desperate man. He's not just going to go out there and quit on himself. Like, you had better put him away. So I'm going to hit the over and hope that Robbie Ring and his camp know this is a big step up. So let's not just bum rush him, right? Let's take our time and methodically pick this guy apart, and then hopefully we get into those late. Poke the guy out of there in 30 seconds, then everyone's going to laugh at me for taking the over, because it would be free money on the under if Robbie Ring does what he's always done.
Main event, another fight where you've got a prospect stepping up undefeated to take on the biggest challenge of his career. It's going to be Trevor Peak taking on Coma Worthy, the Death Star. Coma Worthy, 18-9 record, comes in as the heaviest favorite on the card, minus 225. Trevor Peak 5-0, our current Aries welterweight champion. This will be a contested at lightweight. I'm sure Pat Crumpton will have his eyes on this fight. He will be in attendance. Trevor Peak comes back at plus 190. The total 1.5. Plus 210 for the over, and then the under 1.5 is minus 350. Cody, this one should be violent.
This is going to be a very violent fight indeed, and this is why we all love MMA. And because if you broke it down, skill would be like, who's the better striker? It'd be like, well, Worthy. I mean, he's longer, he's got a big reach advantage, he's got very fast hands, throws it linearly, he got good kicks, he's a better striker. It's like, okay. Who's got the experience advantage? Oh, well, Coma Worthy. I mean, the guy from UFC, he's got a guillotine choke win over Luis Pena, fought 5 times for the promotion. Throughout the course of his career, has fought a plethora of high-level guys. Yeah, no, it would have to be him. It's like, okay, well, who's got the grappling advantage? Geez, Coma Worthy. He's a BJJ brown belt. Did I mention he choked at Luis Pena? Because that ain't easy to do. Yeah, wrestling as well. Okay, what about durability? Ooh, there's your one question mark. And MMA is a sport that's built on, it's not always who's the more skillful guy. It's who wants it more, who's more able. It's they call it a game of suffering. Who's willing to suffer the most? And in Coma Worthy, he's extremely talented. He's an offensive juggernaut. Of his 9 pro losses, he's been finished all 9 times. Of those 9 losses inside the distance, 8 of them have been by knockout. A lot of knockouts in a minute. A lot of knockouts in 40 seconds. Of his 3 losses in the UFC, all of them in the first round. The longest one was less than 2 minutes. He gets clipped, he goes down. He gets boxed up for an entire round and topples over. The first shot that lands clean on generally puts him down. He's lost to guys like Anthony Retich, who were 5-3, guys that were definitely lesser than him. He's got all the skills in the world, and yet he has lost to guys not as skilled for the simple that, they bite down on their mouthpiece and they this is the fight game. Now, there's a puncher's chance, of course. Always that puncher's chance, what if? But when you really want to talk about puncher's chance, it's like, well, one guy, heavy hitter. That gives him even more of a puncher's chance. Trevor Peak is about as a hitter as you're going to see at 155 pounds. The other thing that makes it even more personified is one guy is chinny. And in Coma Worthy's case, I would hate to call him chinny. Certainly would kind of suggests that his durability is at least a little bit in question. So when you got a guy that's got durability versus an offensive juggernaut, it's straight violence written all over it. And then to say that the guy with the big power advantage is this big of an underdog, I get it. You're talking about skill and experience, but Trevor Peake's got a way about him, has a lot of starts, and Trevor Peake just is all over him. He, of course, isn't training in Alabama anymore. I believe he's moved up. You would know the exact
name. Now, yep. Yeah, he's at Agogi now. Yeah, he's at Agogi, huh?
Yeah, so he's moved up the ranks. He's training with some of the best guys in the state. I think he's making improvements to his game. He's definitely maturing. His record 5-0, there's got a no contest in the mix, but essentially he is undefeated, and I think that he is starting to get a little more cone skin. But can he fight into a second round? Can he get taken down? Can he fend off submissions? Because eventually you can't just overpower people and use strength to get out of every position. It's going to catch up with you eventually. And if he was a 2-1 favorite of Coma Worthy, I wouldn't have the same feeling. But this guy's a caged animal, man. Once you open up the door and let him wild, he's going to land at least something. Coma Worthy's case, anything that lands is very troublesome. And again, the plus money just looks too good to me. So when I one of them is getting the job done, and they're both plus money, right? I got to take guys and know that at least one of them's feeling that both of them are going to be coming through because it's going to be straight violence. But I'm minus 350. Clint's no. He what's up as well, and the fans are spectacular versus Kyle Lee, which will 5 minutes further. You're going to get very high level and about as thrilling as 5 minute gets. Great way to start off that main card. Great way to end off that main card. Super pumped to be there.
Hey, man, we are stoked to have you, brother, and we appreciate you guys sitting in on this betting preview. Cody breaks it down as good as I could have, for sure. That was it's about spot on. There's a lot. There's prospects that are going to be tested. Without a doubt, the biggest test they've ever had. If they can come through with flying colors, the sky's the limit. I know the Peak camp has the train of thought that, if we can knock off Coma Worthy, that's just as good, if not better, than beating someone on the Contender Series. And they're hoping that they can kind of skip that process and get on, signed, to a major organization. So I know he's coming in hungry. Coma's hungry to get back there as well. And so it's going to be quite the atmosphere at the Nashville Fairgrounds Arena this Saturday night. Once again, you can watch the pay-per-view at SpectationSports.com. You can bet on it in Tennessee here at Action 247. Make sure you use a promo code Aries. You get a match deposit on your first on your first deposit. You get a match bonus. And then, of course, in the other states, you check out your sports books in I think we're good in Iowa, Colorado, Arizona, and Wyoming now. So we're broadening our scope, and that's definitely cool to get some betting action going on the fights this weekend. Cody, any closing thoughts here? Where can people follow you on Twitter to get your picks? Of course, we've got UFC this weekend. I know you've got a busy week leading up to flying down here.
There's a Tuesday night Contender Series. There is Friday. There is a UFC Saturday, and none more important than this Aries FC card. So I'm happy to be going down to Tennessee. And of course, if you're in the local area, I always say hit me up on CJ Saftic on Twitter. If you're anywhere in the area and you want to come down and watch the fights, hit me up. Come down, we'll watch some fights. If you want to come down for Day of Weigh-ins, if you want to come down on the Thursday, whatever it may be, if you're in the area, want to get together, talk. Thanks for the support as always. And of course, it's going to be an entertaining fight. Only thing that can make it even more entertaining than the spectacular. You're winning a few bucks, so good too.
No doubt, my man. Well, it's all going down this Saturday. Thanks for watching, guys. And we'll be back next week with a recap show. Cody, thanks for the time, brother. We'll see you this weekend in Nash Vegas, man. I'm pumped. Let's party.